The Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, is a nation scarred by conflict. For decades, its eastern provinces have been embroiled in violence. Civilians bear the brunt of this endless cycle of fighting. Among the many groups involved, the M23 has emerged as a particularly potent and destabilizing force in recent years. The current conflict is rooted in the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide in 1994. Hutu militias responsible for the genocide fled across the border into the DRC. Rwanda, seeking to neutralize the threat, supported Congolese rebel groups, sparking broader regional conflicts. These wars devastated the DRC, claiming millions of lives and displacing countless others. The persistence of the conflict underscores the urgent need for a comprehensive and sustainable approach that addresses both the immediate security challenges and the long-term drivers of instability in the DRC. The M23, or Movement of March 23, emerged in 2012. This rebel group, composed primarily of ethnic Tutsis, quickly gained notoriety for its military prowess and brutality. They seized control of Goma, a strategic city in eastern DRC, before being pushed back by Congolese and UN forces. After a period of relative calm, the M23 resurfaced in late 2021, launching a series of attacks that have displaced hundreds of thousands. The M23 claims to fight for the rights of Congolese Tutsis, who they allege face discrimination and persecution by the Congolese government. However, their motives are widely seen as a pretext for seizing power and control over resource-rich areas. The group is accused of widespread human rights abuses, including killings, rape, and the recruitment of child soldiers. The international community has condemned the M23's violence and called for a ceasefire. The humanitarian crisis is worsening, with thousands of people displaced and in desperate need of food, water, and shelter. At the heart of the current crisis lies a deep-seated mistrust between the DRC and Rwanda. The DRC accuses Rwanda of supporting the M23, providing them with weapons, funding, and even troops. These accusations are supported by UN reports and independent investigations. Rwanda vehemently denies these allegations, claiming it is a victim of Congolese aggression and regional instability. The Rwandan government argues that the DRC harbors remnants of the FDLR, a Hutu extremist group responsible for the 1994 Rwandan genocide. They claim the FDLR poses an existential threat to Rwanda and justifies their intervention in the DRC. The accusations and counter-accusations have created a diplomatic impasse. Regional organizations, such as the East African Community, have attempted to mediate the dispute, but with limited success. The lack of trust and the unwillingness of both sides to engage in meaningful dialogue hinder efforts to find a peaceful solution. Negotiations between the DRC government and the M23 have been fraught with challenges. Previous attempts at dialogue, such as the 2013 peace agreement signed in Nairobi, Kenya, ultimately failed to bring lasting peace. The M23 reneged on its commitments, and fighting resumed within months. The DRC government has been reluctant to engage in direct talks with the M23, arguing that it would legitimize a terrorist organization. They insist that Rwanda must be part of any negotiations, as they believe Rwanda holds significant influence over the M23. The stalled negotiations have had devastating consequences for the civilian population in eastern DRC. The M23, emboldened by the lack of progress, has intensified its attacks, displacing hundreds of thousands. The international community continues to call for a ceasefire and the resumption of dialogue. The lack of trust, the unwillingness to compromise, and the complex web of regional interests pose significant obstacles to peace in eastern DRC. The conflict in eastern DRC has far-reaching regional implications. Neighboring countries, including Uganda, Burundi, and Tanzania, are grappling with the spillover effects of the violence. The influx of refugees strains resources and exacerbates existing tensions in these countries. The presence of armed groups operating across borders poses a security threat to the entire region. Uganda and Burundi have deployed troops to eastern DRC, citing the need to protect their borders and pursue rebel groups operating in the area. While these interventions are presented as security measures, they risk further destabilizing the region. The presence of foreign troops can fuel local resentment and create new alliances, potentially drawing other countries into the conflict. The international community is concerned about the potential for the conflict to escalate into a wider regional war. The African Union and regional organizations are working to prevent a regional conflagration, calling for dialogue, diplomacy, and a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The current conflict in eastern DRC evokes painful memories of the Rwandan genocide. The presence of the FDLR, a group with links to the genocide in eastern DRC, continues to be a source of tension and instability. Rwanda's pursuit of the FDLR, while justified by security concerns, has had devastating consequences for the Congolese people. The Congolese government accuses Rwanda of using the pursuit of the FDLR as a pretext for meddling in its internal affairs and plundering its resources. Rwanda denies these accusations, claiming its actions are solely motivated by the need to protect its citizens from the threat posed by the FDLR. The presence of the FDLR and the legacy of the Rwandan genocide cast a long shadow over the conflict in eastern DRC. Addressing the issue of the FDLR is crucial for achieving lasting peace in the region. This includes supporting the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of FDLR fighters, as well as addressing the root causes of the group's continued existence. As the conflict in eastern DRC rages on, a steady stream of accusations and counter-accusations emerges from both sides. The DRC accuses Rwanda of orchestrating and supporting the M23 rebellion, providing them with weapons, training, and even soldiers. Rwanda vehemently denies these allegations, dismissing them as fabrications and propaganda. They accuse the DRC of harboring and collaborating with the FDLR, a group responsible for the Rwandan genocide. These competing narratives make it difficult to discern the truth and complicate efforts to find a peaceful solution. The international community, while calling for an end to the violence, has been hesitant to take sides or impose sanctions. The lack of a unified international response has emboldened the warring parties and allowed the conflict to fester. The situation is further complicated by the presence of other armed groups operating in eastern DRC, many of which are involved in illicit activities. The conflict in eastern DRC is a complex and multifaceted crisis with no easy solutions. Decades of violence, impunity, and weak governance have created a deeply entrenched culture of conflict. Addressing the root causes of the conflict is essential for achieving lasting peace and stability in the region. One of the key challenges is the lack of good governance and accountability. Corruption is rampant, and state institutions are weak and often ineffective. Strengthening governance, promoting the rule of law, and tackling corruption are crucial steps towards breaking the cycle of violence. Another major challenge is the illegal exploitation of natural resources. By tackling the economic drivers of conflict, it is possible to create incentives for peace and stability. The conflict in eastern DRC is a tragedy that has claimed far too many lives and caused immeasurable suffering. The international community has a moral obligation to act decisively to end the violence and support the Congolese people in their pursuit of peace, justice, and prosperity. First and foremost, there must be an immediate ceasefire and a commitment from all parties to engage in meaningful dialogue. The international community should use its leverage to pressure the warring parties to come to the negotiating table and seek a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Secondly, it is essential to address the humanitarian crisis unfolding in eastern DRC. Millions of people have been displaced from their homes and are in desperate need of food, water, shelter, and medical assistance. The international community must provide increased humanitarian aid and ensure that aid agencies have safe and unimpeded access to those in need. Justice is essential for healing the wounds of the past and preventing future atrocities. By working together, the Congolese people, regional actors, and the international community can build a more peaceful and prosperous future for all.